have been traveling through Mexico for the last 4 months, and we just came home to visit family, and we are off with our travel bug again. This time we are crossing the entire country, and we're going to explore the West Coast on a road trip. We took Range and Rover with us. Of course, they have to go see the world too. We kept them in their crates for the most part, but they also wanted to drive sometimes, so we had to let Range do so. Our first stop is in Tennessee. We never saw Nashville before, and we really just wanted to stop to get out of the car since we have been driving for 11 hours at that point. We could really see how Nashville has a lot of music culture here, and we saw a lot of bachelorette parties happening too. We walked around and just explored the sights from the main street all the way down to the water, and we enjoyed being out having fresh air before we hit the road again. Next up, we saw Kentucky, and looking at the landscape here, it was so interesting because what we were driving through was mostly farms, and the sun started to set, and it was just absolutely beautiful to drive through and very peaceful. After the sunset, we hit Illinois, and we got out again so that we could explore Gateway Arch National Park. This archway was actually here in representation of Thomas Jefferson opening the West to the pioneers. So it was interesting to be there, and also interesting that we knocked a national park off of our list being there. We stayed the night in Illinois, and in the morning we continued on our road trip. This right here is Kansas City that we're driving through. Kansas City, Missouri. I didn't end up driving much on this road trip, but I ended up driving a little bit to get us all the way on our push to Montana. We made it to Iowa, but we decided to stay on the main roads, so we were just driving through the landscape and enjoying that, and we wanted to keep on driving so that we could catch the sunset in South Dakota. We made it to South Dakota, and we decided to take Range and Rover out. We took them to this park that had a waterfall and rocks to climb around on, and they just got some outside time. They were sniffing around in nature and absolutely loving it. We love seeing them adventure, and that's why we bring them on travels with us. After they spent some time enjoying outside, we hit the road again, and we spent our time driving through South Dakota. The landscape here was very flat, and we noticed that there was a lot of windmills. As we kept driving, we saw the landscape changing in front of us, and it looked so beautiful out there. And once we hit that area, it was amazing to see the rolling hills all the way as far as your eye can see. And we were just driving along it, driving from the East Coast to the West Coast. And we just felt our dreams were really coming true. This is something that we both have wanted to do since we were very young. Travel across the U.S. in a car, and better yet, it's Nick's Camaro. We continued along, and there was lots of farmland, hay, rolling hills. It was just beautiful to see. The sunset was absolutely incredible against the rolling hills, and we ended up passing this little old town, and we really wanted to check out what it was. We got out of the car, put our drone up in the air, and we realized that we were circling over an original 1880 town in South Dakota. I mean, this is exactly where original settlers were hanging out, going to the post office, going to the bank, going to the bars and the saloons and hotels. It was actually crazy to look around, even though we weren't allowed in. We continued our drive and watched the entire sunset, and it felt like we were chasing the sun because we were traveling into the light. We ended up staying the night in Wyoming, and then we woke up to continue our trip and drive to Montana. Montana was an amazing transformation of landscape. The landscape had this blue hue with yellow-green grass. It was amazing to start seeing mountains again, as we've been driving through the flat basically this whole time. We finally made it to Missoula. Missoula is where we're going to be for the next 2 weeks because we are visiting our friends here who moved here from Florida, and they're going to be housing us while we explore the national parks of Montana and Wyoming. After nonstop driving with little sleep, we finally made it to Montana. We're in Missoula with our two friends, Emily and Kevin. They were going to be our tour guides. They took us on lots of hikes through the beautiful valleys of Missoula. Look at these views from this park. It's absolutely incredible. We've never seen anything in our life like this before. Next, we went on a hike to the Missoula M. This is a really cool concept because all the cities around Montana have a letter built into the mountain to represent what that city is. A few days later, we went on a road trip to one of Emily and Kevin's favorite spots called Lake Como. We were in Missoula for a total of 2 weeks, so we spent a lot of time just hanging out around the home, making home-cooked meals, hanging out with our kitties plus their kitties, and planning out what we were going to do for the weekend. The next weekend, it was time to go take another road trip. This time, we're going to go visit a national park, and we're driving all the way north, almost to the border of Canada, to see Glacier National Park. come ride with us. After a long drive, we took our first stop at a random park along the way. We found a wild blackberry bush and ate some berries. It was so good. We made it to our first peak, but it was so early in the morning that all the fog was still in the air. What's crazy about the fog is that it tricks you into feeling safe, but we were literally on a cliff. We sat up there long enough to start seeing the fog clear from the air, and we could really start to see the views.
Jumping out the side, gonna jump into the valley, gonna kill ourselves, gonna tumble down, gonna break our necks.
We are out here in the canyon.
Now it's time to continue on. The sunrise is coming, so it's time for us to get to the national park.
This morning we woke up at literally supposed to be 2, but then we woke up at 2:45. But we drove all the way out here. We are about to be on the border of Canada. No, we're not going.
It's 22 miles.
It's close.
Yeah, we're on the outside of Glacier National Park in Montana.
Yeah.
Let the adventures begin. Right away, it felt like we were in a whole different world. The trees are so beautiful here.
Look at this absolutely incredible view behind me. This is ridiculous.
The lookout points in this national park are breathtaking.
We're eating lunch, looking out at Heaven's Peak.
Now we're about to do our favorite hike from the entire park.
We are in Logan's Pass, and we're about to hike all the way up there to find the hidden lake.
As we were hiking, we kept seeing wild chipmunks. It was so cute. After a long hike up the valley, we made it. This is Logan's Pass Hidden Lake. Absolutely beautiful. We found a little trail so that we could hike down to the actual lake itself and could see different views of Logan's Pass. Now it's time for our next hike. This was our final view of the national park. It was absolutely incredible and life-changing to be here. The views, the beautiful lakes, the trees, everything about this national park was absolutely amazing to us. Glacier National Park easily became our favorite national park in all of the US. Now it's time to go back to Emily and Kevin's. We've got a concert to catch. I saw that Revolution Live was coming into town, so we all got tickets and we saw some reggae.
Yes, God is a man. Hey, sing whoa, whoa. Y'all sing with us. Whoa, we're grooving. Nothing like. You're telling up, I wanna lose it. Nothing like roots reggae music. We're grooving. Nothing like roots reggae music. You're telling up, I wanna lose it. Nothing like roots reggae music. High self-attention. Saying I can spend the rest of this lazy afternoon away with you.
Now it's time for our next adventure. We are going on a road trip all the way to Wyoming to see Yellowstone National Park.
We are out here in Wyoming. We're about to get to Yellowstone Park. Next to Devil's Slide right there. We are here at what I thought was called Shakespeare's Cliff, but I think it's Sheepwater.
Sheep water. These are made from lava. They're basaltic.
Yeah.
Basaltic prisms.
For this adventure, we actually are changing things up and staying out in the national park camping.
Okay, so we made it. We're here at the campground in Yellowstone National Park.
Gonna unpack the Prius.
Got a Prius. Campsite 66. And then we're here at camp! Yeah! Whee!
Set up over here. This is our tent. Looks real flat. Wow. Cozy. And Emily and Kevin's.
Now that our camp is set up, it's time to go explore the national park.
We are out here at Roaring Mountain. This is crazy. Look at the smoke billowing out.
The smoke coming out of the mountain is actually a thermal vent, meaning that it is boiling hot in there. This national park is full of these thermal vents, so you can see that the water is literally boiling hot. Who wants a mud bath? Just kidding, this is so hot you would burn your skin off. Yellowstone National Park is really huge, so we took our time mapping out our next places. This hike is really interesting because we're walking over boiling pits on this long path that's going to cross over all of it. We arrived at the best part of this hike and saw how beautiful it was to see the sulfur pools and the colors that it creates.
Look at it boiling out there. There's literal water coming out right now.
I got splashed. Whoa.
Look how cool it is watching the water splash out of this one.
And there goes the explosion.
All throughout the national park, you're able to see wild Yellowstone bison. This is the largest population of bison in the entire US. The bison here are protected and allowed to roam freely. They are so cute.
Yo, we out here, we Yellowstoners. Bro, we chillin'.
It's morning time. We set up our camp to make some breakfast and enjoy the sunrise before we started our next hikes. As we were driving, we saw that there was a huge bison migration happening. We realized that a huge migration was happening at the time that we were at the national park, so it was very beautiful to see them walking around and trailing each other.
Thanks.
We made our way to the center of the park where we could see the old geyser explode during the sunset. This is the biggest, most famous geyser in all of Yellowstone National Park, and it only explodes a few times a day, so it's very special to see this. This is the Yellowstone Lodge. It's a famous place to stay right near the old geyser. We took some time to explore around inside it. It's very unique and very cozy. Yellowstone National Park is so big that it actually took us 2 days to explore around the whole thing. That's why we camped there. So now we are finishing up the loop with a few more hikes. This is Yellowstone Lake, the biggest lake in all of the Yellowstone National Park. And that's a wrap. This is the last of our loop, and the exit is coming up soon. Thank you to Yellowstone Park. It was absolutely amazing being here, and we feel so refreshed. Now it's time to road trip back to Missoula. Now it's time to continue on our road trip. We loved seeing Glacier National Park and the views that it had. We loved Lake Como, absolutely stunning and relaxing, and camping in Yellowstone was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that everyone should do once. Thank you to Montana. It's time for us to continue on. Make sure to subscribe and see what we're doing on the West Coast.